Well, hello and welcome everyone. I hope all of you had a great weekend and you're off to a great start this week. And Amy and I were excited to be here and we're excited about the launch of the Advisory Business Development Program. And it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. I was joking on another session last week. My wife recently started working at home as well. And so she's kind of overheard some of my presentations and she said, your voice goes up a whole octave whenever you're talking about something that you get excited about. So I apologize ahead of time if that happens throughout the introduction here. This is around the advisory mindset and business development. It's a topic that I see many within our profession. They want help, they want guidance, and probably even seen a more of an uptick in the unique and remote environment that many of us are working in. And it's a topic that I've seen several times overlooked. It may have a misunderstanding of what it is, and for many there's even an element of fear. But if you think about it, it can play such a big role in the success of a firm, and also can play such a big role in the success of a career. So I want to start off, spend a few minutes here just to really set the foundation and talk through the why and what is the purpose and why we're offering this program. And over the years, I've heard many firms, and even the firm that I was with prior to joining Upstream, we talked about the need for sales training. But if you step back and you start to dig a little deeper on that, you start to little more about firms. I think what firms are really after are strong, profitable, organic growth. They're not looking for a bunch of full-time sales professionals. They're looking for their partners, their directors, senior managers at being better at being a trusted advisor. So that's being able to serve and expand on relationships with current clients, and then being able to identify and bring on new clients, the kind of clients that are good for your firm that drive strong, profitable growth. And so with that thought, I'm going to ask all of you to take a brief journey with me here. I want you to take a few seconds, and I want you to think back over the past year, maybe 3 years, maybe even up to 5 years with your firm. And I want you to do an honest assessment and think back on what have you done well? What successes have you had around that advisor mindset and business development and driving firm growth? So what's worked? And then I also want you to think about the roadblocks. What challenges have you had? And then we're going to fast forward to the next 6 months, 12 months, maybe even up to 3 years. And I'm going to ask what is your vision to drive profitable growth for this year and then years to come? For any program that I'm involved with, I like to really kind of try to drive our participants to have that vision going into this. So if you can begin with that end in mind, Amy and I can help you get there. And I believe for maybe not just most firms, but maybe even all firms, they have that goal around strong organic growth. It's just some are better than others. But part of the problem, we've seen many firms, and please keep in mind, this is not meant to be a derogatory statement, but I've seen many firms, they've done well, they've had some successes, so they're kind of in that mode of this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it. It's kind of that, if it's not broke, let's not fix it kind of mentality. And once again, I don't fault firms for that. And you know, if you look back on the history of our profession, there's some years where yes, that works, that approach works. Maybe there's new regulation or the economy's doing well, so our firms are doing well. But then you hit a year like this, or maybe back in the 2008-9 time frame, where growth, it doesn't come quite as easy. Firms step back and maybe they have a little bit of panic on how are we going to continue to grow as a firm. But the good news is that advisory mindset and business development, these are skills that can be taught. They can be improved upon with a process and that repetition of getting better and better. I compare it to working out or learning a new language. That repetition will cause you to continue to get better and better. So if you think about that profitable organic growth, it's core to the mission and culture of so many of our firms. So if you can start to think about business development around that advisory mindset, which Amy and I will definitely spend more time on defining what that means, but in a short version, it's approaching helping versus selling. When you're helping your clients, when you're being proactive, when you're providing value, it leads to new opportunities with current clients. And if you're growing your current client base, it rewards to that career opportunities and that career development. And it leads to the financial success of a firm. So the easiest way to define that advisory mindset is around helping versus selling. And that's a different approach to many of the sales programs that I've seen throughout the years. A lot of the sales programs that I've seen in the past are around overcoming objection or advancing or closing a deal at all costs, maybe even pushing stuff on our clients that they don't want. But if we're helping our clients, we're living up to our promise and of our promise on our client service. And when we can do that, it starts to become an extension of your firm culture. And I also understand, and I want to acknowledge we're somewhat in a unique situation right now. A lot of firms are still somewhat in a remote world. Many of our clients are still a lot of unknowns out there. There's some things on the horizon that could impact our clients and how our firms operate. But that's not a reason to pull back on that from that focus of growth. But with that, we did want to acknowledge we understand it is a little different situation right now. And maybe how we're operating with business development, it is a little different. But Amy and I, we're going to tie much of our content into some of those real life situations and what we're seeing out in the market right now. But we'll also focus on how the core teaching and training of the process that we'll be talking about, it could apply it at any time. And so far, we've talked about the foundation at more of a firm level, but there's also two areas for more of an individual level that I want to point out. So if you think about it, if you're strong at business development, you're in a better position to choose the clients that you work with and choose the projects that you work on. So the thought, if you're better at business development, you're better at identifying and building those relationships with those A and B level clients. Those are the type of clients that anyone in your firm would want to work with. They pay on time. They treat your people well. They're just the type of clients that are great for your firm. That second thought, that business developers, they're able to make more progress more quickly in their careers. And when firm leadership, and many of you are probably already fully aware of this, but when you're discussing that next generation or that next prospective partner group, in almost every single case, we're looking at that individual's business development, their skill set. Is it an area that they're good at? Is it an area that they can continue to grow in? And I want to acknowledge, I know a good portion of our attendees today are partners, so maybe some of you have already climbed that mountain or started to climb that mountain. But it's a great opportunity as a reminder to focus on when you're developing that next generation of leaders. This is such a critical skill set. And not only that, if you start earlier in someone's career, it's going to help them develop more quickly over time. And as you'll find out throughout the program, Amy and I were very big on relationships. So we did want to take a minute or two just here for a brief introduction. And I'm delighted to have Amy Franco co-facilitating the program with me. So welcome, Amy. I'll let you give your background first, and then we'll jump in.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It is fantastic to be here with all of you. I'm Amy Franco, and Heath and I have been collaborating in various ways on business development initiatives and skill building for probably the better part of 4 years now. When he was with his previous firm, that's when we started our relationship. And interestingly enough, we were connected through another mutual relationship. So there's such power in relationships and in how we're all connected in being able to collaborate together. And just a little bit about my background. My background is I spent the first 10 years of my career in technology. So I worked for IBM, and I also worked for Lenovo. And I had a variety of client-facing roles, marketing, sales and business development roles, that I spent time with our clients across multiple industries. And then about 15 years ago, I took a pivot into entrepreneurship and started a firm of my own, which was focused on learning and development and strategy. And what that looks like today is I work with professional services organizations, I work with technology organizations, and I work with them on business development strategy, business development skill building, which is how Heath and I came to work together, and what brings us together to work with all of you today.
All right, well, thank you, Amy. And for those of you that I have not met yet, Heath Alloway, the newest director at Upstream. I actually joined the team on April 1st, so I picked a unique time to make a career transition. But prior to that, I spent close to 14 years with a large national firm, and what I call somewhat of a unique role throughout my career there. My last two official titles were National Growth Manager and then Director of Business Development. But many of my core responsibilities were tied to firm growth, so working with our firm leadership, several industry or niche or service line leaders, and the way we were going to continue to grow in those areas. So that involved strategic planning, uncovering and implementing new services. And then one of the biggest areas of oversight was overseeing our firm-wide business development program. And as Amy alluded to, that's where we got connected and worked together the past several years. So it was a great journey and definitely learned a lot. And then over the past 6 months, been taking some of that and following my passion to bring that to the profession as a whole and working with other firms. And over the next several minutes, Amy and I were going to provide a brief introduction overview of the program. We'll talk through the foundation and the opportunity. And then I'll turn it over to Amy to dive more into the process and that advisory mindset. And then I'll come back on for the last few minutes and wrap up around program goals and some of the more what I would call logistical type items and what the ideal participant would look like. And considering this is an introductory webinar, we want to make sure to leave plenty of time at the end for any questions that all of you may have. We'll have our contact information up there as well. So if you want to reach out with any questions, Amy and I, we would love to take those. But please feel free to chat those in throughout the presentation. We'll take those and get to as many of those as we can, but we should allow plenty of time at the end. So I'll start with a couple observations. The two most frequent or most common mistakes I see our professionals make around the fact that, one, I'm not a salesperson. Maybe they see it as a negative light. They have that fear that I talked about. Part of that fear may revolve around trying to push something on a client that maybe they don't need. I've heard the terminology of several use the terminology around the secret sauce. I have yet to uncover a secret sauce. I think it's more around process and discipline. And so we'll talk through some of that. We've seen several people make the mistake of they feel like they have to be an extrovert to be good at business development. That's simply not the case. In many cases, we see introverts that are better at listening and actually are better at business development than those that are extroverted. You'll hear Amy talk about the thought of an ambivert, so some that can actually play in both of those roles. And then the second area is around we don't have time. Most people within our profession, we have several responsibilities. And if you look outside of our profession, many organizations, they have a sales team or they have a whole sales department. Many firms don't have that. Much of our growth revolves around our client-facing professionals. And many of our client-facing professionals, they've never truly viewed themselves as business developers. And so when you have that fear, you find other ways to spend your time. But when you start to think about this differently, redefine what it is, it's really more of an extension of serving your clients and your firm culture. And when we approach it that way with that mindset, anyone in your firm can play a role in developing new business. This is an opportunity to elevate that trusted advisor status. And the other thought around throughout the program, I'll use the terminology pre-clients instead of prospects. So if we can start thinking about our prospects as pre-clients, so thinking about them as clients before they even come on board, we can start to provide value and work with them so they'll see what it's like working with you before they ever come on board. And so just to kind of reframe the timing aspect of this, if we don't have time, we have to find a way to make time. If growth is so important to our firm and our culture, we have to find a way to make time. So I'm not going to ask for a response in the chat or show of hands or anything like that, but I like to ask a couple questions of, who on this line or looking at the partners or senior managers within your firm, who would like to grow your new client base by 20%? And I'm guessing that most would say yes. But if I was to ask who has 20% more capacity, who has 20% more hours, or who can work 20% harder, my guess is most would say no. So the good news is really a lot of what we'll focus on is how to work smarter with your business development time. So the thought around spending 50% of your business development time with your top clients. And I'll talk a little more about that. Those are some of the areas that we're going to talk about. We're asking you to work smarter, not more hours, or we're not asking you to work harder. We're asking you to be very intentional with your time and focus and where you'll see the most success. And so when you think about it, being the most impactful with your time, I compare it to playing a video game with my kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, and whether that's Pac-Man or they both enjoy this game called Talking Tom Gold Run. Several times my daughter will ask me if I could try to beat her high score, and that very rarely happens. I step back and I think about how can my 7 and 8-year-old daughter, how can she be better at this game than myself in my 40s? And then what it boils down to is she's played the game so many times, she anticipates what's coming next. That is no different in business or in business development. If you know what's coming next, you're in a position to be successful. So when you start to anticipate what's coming next, you recognize those patterns. And I'm not saying that every client relationship will be the same, not every pursuit will be the same, but there's patterns that we continue to see and continue to observe. And if we can understand and uncover those patterns, we start to know what's coming next. And if we can hit that point, we can develop a repeatable process that you can leverage on a broader level within your firm. And if you have a process already, you start to become more efficient and effective with our time. So here's a survey information I want to share with the group. It helps provide some insight on how our clients are looking for professional service providers. Some of these patterns, they continue to stay the same, but some of these patterns really continue to evolve over time. So if you think about our profession and being one of the highest integrity professions, the most common way that our clients or prospective clients are finding us are just through simply asking other people. So if we can take that to the next level, if you can start thinking about being more proactive and asking your clients, I'll use the terminology and introductions instead of referrals, so focusing on introductions to our top clients. That's a great way to develop new business. And then the other one, I have it around searching online. Not just searching online, but if I look at the past several months, it was an opportunity for firms to be a trusted advisor. We didn't need an invitation. It seems like most firms really stepped up. They proactively reached out to clients. They did more with webinars. They put out guidance through articles. So they have data that they have access to. So most prospective clients or clients, if they're spending time on your websites, if they're spending time on your webinars or the articles that you're putting, they are leaving a data trail for firms to leverage to really engage with prospective clients. We're looking for cross-serving type of opportunities with current clients. So ways to be more impactful and more effective with our time. And when we get to this point, business development and that advisory mindset, it starts to become a competitive advantage. So if you think about other areas within your firm, most firms that we talk to, they have a process around time reports, or they have a process around delivering on client work. But very few firms that we talk to actually have a true process around business development. When you have that track to run on, it'll help you leverage that advisory mindset. And too many professionals, what we see within our profession, they want to opt out of business development because it makes them uncomfortable. But business development, it's the lifeblood of any firm. It should always be a all hands on deck type exercise. No partner should be allowed to opt out of business development. But here's the observation. In most firms, not just partners, but I would say at various levels within firms, you have maybe 2 or 3 out of every 10 partners that are truly natural at business development. And I would maybe even argue the fact that maybe they're not naturals at business development, but maybe they had a really good coach in their career that helped bring them up and helped kind of mold them in their career development. So in most firms, 2 to 3 out of every 10 partners are natural business developers. But the good news is the remaining partner group, they can learn to be more effective business developers, and yet we still see too many, they give up climbing that business development mountain. So our goal with this program is really to help you and your firm move the dial in those areas and continue to be more successful in driving that profitable or organic growth. So we do have a few polling questions sprinkled in throughout the presentation. So we have our first polling question. Does your firm have a formal business development process? Does your firm have a formal business development process? The options are yes, no, we have one, but it's not used consistently. It changes from year to year, so professionals are from professional to professional. So maybe everyone within your firm, they're doing it a little differently. All right, with that, Amy, I'll now transition to you around the process and the advisory mindset.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. So I wanted to make a quick point on the last on the polling question. That specific question I have used in a number of different industry scenarios. So professional services, technology, manufacturing, just a broad range of industries. And the results that I typically get is that about 50% of firms or organizations have some type of formal business development structure process, but then the other 50% don't. So they either they don't have anything in their firm at all, or they might have some people that are maybe they've created their own process, or there's one that had been perhaps introduced at a certain point in time, but it's no longer being championed or being used consistently. So if you fall into the 50% that don't have a process, or there isn't one being used consistently, that's something that I see a lot when asking this question of a variety of industries. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process and the advisory mindset as a whole. And where I'd like to start our conversation is to imagine in your mind's eye an individual that you would personally trust to advise you. As Heath mentioned earlier with some of the buying data criteria, that many times when we are looking for someone or an organization to work with that we want to trust, we are asking others, or we're doing our own independent research, and we're looking for social proof of this organization or this person's expertise. So I want to ask of all of you, if you can picture someone that you would trust to advise you, what would they be doing? What types of behaviors would they have that would tell you that they have that advisory mindset? So if I could ask you to put that into chat, and just chat your thoughts, and what are some of the behaviors that tell you someone has an advisory mindset? And while you're thinking about that and putting that into chat, there's one that consistently comes up, one or two that I hear very consistently. The first is that someone is a very, very strong listener, very intense listener. You know that they're really taking in everything that you're saying and processing it and giving you the opportunity to share what's on your mind, and maybe also has some ideas for you that can help you navigate your path. So that's one that I hear very, very regularly. And then another one that I hear very regularly is someone with an advisory mindset really brings unique ideas, unique insights to the table. They are proactively bringing those to clients and pre-clients, and helping them to just think differently about their situation, about their business whatsoever. So I see a couple coming in here. I see one, forward thinking. Yes, absolutely. That ability to be a bit futuristic, if you will. He talked about being able to anticipate patterns and looking for patterns. Forward thinking, they have agility. They are able to pivot very strategically based on the information at hand. Excellent example of someone who approaches business development from that advisory perspective. I'll give another minute here to see if any others come in. And while I do that, I don't know, Heath, do you have anything that you would add to that? Behaviors that you see of someone with an advisory mindset approach?
And Amy, one of the, let's say the biggest just starting point is, and this is going to sound much easier than what it is, but just that the thought of caring more about your client's success than your success. So what are their outcomes? Where are they trying to get to? What mountains are they trying to climb? And not as much focused on maybe your realization on your work, or different things like that, of just truly being bought in to your client's success. And I think, going back to the high integrity piece, our profession is viewed and we're positioned really well to serve as that trusted advisor. So that would be one of the main ones that stick out to me, Amy.
Yeah, and that's an excellent one. And I'll add one more and see if any others come into chat. Part of having that advisory approach to business development, and I think this ties to the comments about forward thinking, it's that ability to balance strategy and tactics. I think we either tend to think of someone as either they're a very strategic, big picture thinker, or they are someone who's very detailed and tactical, detail oriented. And I find with an advisory approach to business development, there almost has to be this ability to fluidity, if you will, between those two, holding those two ideas in your mind. On one hand, you have to be thinking big picture about firm growth. You have to be thinking big picture about your clients and helping them move forward, helping them to be successful. And then there are also the tactical day-to-day business development activities that we need to be consistent with. What are the business development habits that we bring, that we do each and every day to help us make that smaller forward progress toward the bigger picture goals. So that ability to hold strategy and tactics a bit at the same time, if you will. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I don't see anything else coming into chat, so I'm going to move on and give us a working definition. The advisory approach defined. So there's quite a bit here packed into this definition, so I'll break it down for us. So the way that we see an advisory approach to business development, it's a combination of our mindsets, our behaviors, and also our processes. And when we combine those three things, we proactively differentiate ourselves, but it has to be in the mind of the client. We think of ourselves as being different all the time, right? Our firm is different. The things that we bring to market are different, and we do have uniqueness. However, in the eyes of the client, we want to be thinking from their perspective. Do they see us as unique and different? Are we really making a difference for them? And when we do come from that perspective and we're different from in their eyes, we can amplify the value of the solutions that we're creating together or bringing to the table. And then even most importantly, we can create really tangible benefits for the clients, because that's what we're here to do. We want to partner with our clients and pre-clients. We want to partner with them, and we want to work together to bring really tangible benefit to them. When we bring that tangible benefit to them through an approach like this, they grow, they're successful, and we get to be their strategic partner for that ride, and we get to work with them for a long time. I recently, a couple weeks ago, I did an interview with someone who has expertise in the marketing space. He owns a marketing agency, and he shared this really interesting statistic that I'll pass along to all of you. And what he shared is that if you think about your ideal clients, so your A clients and your B clients, our ideal clients over the course of a 10-year period are 25 times more valuable than our average client or on down the line. So when we talk about where we're going, where we want to be investing our time, and that's a part of this program, really thinking strategically about where we invest our time. If we're investing our time with those ideal A and B level clients, we have a huge opportunity in front of us. So we will cover in the curriculum how to be investing time with A and B clients so that we can not only help them exceed their expectations and grow, but we can also grow as well as individuals and as a firm. All right, so I'm going to move on to share a little bit more about the process or the framework itself. And if you think about any industry or vertical, you think about any specific client or maybe a prospective client, if you have something like that in your mind, there are four elements that will contribute to your success. And that's what we really distill this curriculum down to. If we can work within these four elements, we will amplify our odds of succeeding in that vertical or succeeding in working with those best clients or those pre-clients. So I'm going to break this down into each of its four quadrants here. And I'm going to start in the top left with intelligence. And we call that's in this program, we call it advisory intelligence. And the idea here is that for any given opportunity, a vertical opportunity, a client opportunity, whatever that happens to look like, I think it kind of goes without saying right now that there's more complexity than ever before. There are more people involved in decision-making processes. There is more complexity being introduced into their business because of a whole wide variety of trends and pressures. And so in this part of the curriculum, we talk about what some of those trends are that affect people making decisions to work with us. And we also dive into some intelligence categories that can really help you to stand out. And when we look at these intelligence categories and we are paying attention to them, we can then really map our solutions and our expertise to what it is that they're trying to solve for, or their biggest opportunities that they're trying to leverage and grow with. So that's a little bit about advisory intelligence. The second piece of the puzzle is all about relationships. And Heath, I want to come back to something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, which was that idea of introverts versus extroverts. And there's some very interesting research on this if you would like to dig into this at some point in time on your own. Adam Grant, who was with the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania. He was very curious when it comes to sales and business development people who are in front of clients like we all are. What type of person tends to be the most successful in earning client trust, in earning their business and growing business? And so he did an experiment with about 300 salespeople across various industries. And what he found was, his premise is that he thought that extroverted people would be the most successful in client-facing roles, in business development sales roles. So that was his theory that he was trying to work with. What he ultimately uncovered, though, was that it's not extroverts who are the most successful. It is someone called an ambivert. And an ambivert is neither completely introverted nor completely extroverted. Someone who is an ambivert tends to be on a spectrum. And so if we take those of us that are on this call together, 2/3 of us are ambiverts. We are neither completely introverted nor completely extroverted. And that is a huge advantage for us. And a couple of the reasons why it's a huge advantage for us is because we tend to be situationally flexible. We tend to be adaptable. We tend to be able to listen well and interpret what someone is sharing with us. And because we are putting ourselves in the shoes of the other person, showing empathy, those are all tend to be traits of someone who is an ambivert. And because ambiverts are so good at that, they are excellent at being able to bring barriers down. They are excellent at being able to build trust. And those are all huge components of advisory business development. So I like to bust the myth that you have to be extremely extroverted in order to be successful in front of clients. Those of us that are ambiverts, and you can be anywhere from more introverted to a little bit more extroverted. I tend to be on the more extroverted side of that scale, but I am definitely an ambivert. We can be more successful. So I just wanted to share that research for you in case you're interested in digging into that a little bit further. But on the topics of relationships, the right relationships matter. And being able to build relationships, what we call high impact relationships, are really important with decision makers, with influencers, with other types of folks. And once we have identified those high impact relationships, we have to work to earn access. And then we need to be able to have really productive business development conversations in order to help them solve their challenges, in order to help move them forward. So we dig into all different aspects of relationships and relationship building in this section. And then the last two pieces of the puzzle, the next one is propose and creating proposals. And the honest reality is that most proposals fail to win business. And the reason that they fail to win business is because they tend to not be as relevant to the buyer or decision maker as we think that they are. And in this particular part of the curriculum, we will dig into a little bit further about what makes for an excellent proposal, what are some of the things to be keeping in mind, and then providing you with a framework to help you think about adjusting your proposals or introducing this into your proposal process so that you can make sure that your proposals are always focused on the client and client outcomes, because when we focus on that end of the equation, we will improve our odds of being more successful. And then the last piece of the puzzle is a very important one. This is earning commitments all throughout the business development process. And Heath, you alluded to this earlier, the idea of, quote unquote, closing business and closing business at all costs. That is not part of the advisory business development mindset or process. And the idea here is to take a look at closing a little bit differently, to really take a big picture, strategic approach at the commitments that we need to be making to our clients and the commitments that we need from our clients in return in order to be able to work together and create the most value together. So as part of this part of the curriculum, we talk about what some of the different commitments are that you want to be looking for, earning and giving to clients and pre-clients, and then putting some specific strategies into place to help you do that as part of your opportunities that you're working with. So that's a little bit about the process in a nutshell, and a little bit of a glimpse into the curriculum that we would be covering. And then the last thing I wanted to end with is just a little bit of content around trends to be considering with your clients, your pre-clients, and even your own firm. And we do actually get into these topics in quite a bit more detail in the curriculum, but I wanted to share just a few of them with you at a high level so that you could get a sense of what we would be talking about in the curriculum itself. We and our clients are all dealing with an extremely accelerated pace of return on investment. Our clients and our pre-clients have become more sophisticated, much more time-bound and sophisticated in their expectations of us, which means that we have to have a very clear understanding of what's most important to them, what their timeframes are for accomplishing what's most important to them, so that all of our conversations, advisory, business development conversations, and the work that we do together can be geared toward what's most important to them and helping them to get where they're going more quickly and with better results. The second trend that is here to stay with us is decision by committee and by consensus. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier. We have more people involved in decision-making processes than ever before. The Corporate Executive Board does quite a bit of research in this space, and for any given opportunity, we can have up to 7 decision makers in an opportunity. The more complex the opportunity, the more people are involved. And what that means for us is we probably have some gaps in the relationships that we're building. So we have to be very highly aware of the relationships that we have and the ones that we need. So we dig into this trend in more detail, and we tie that to relationships, to intelligence, to the different areas of the business development process so that we can insulate ourselves from relationships that we might be missing. Another one is automation, potentially creating commoditization. I think it goes without saying that our profession and many professions are being automated in many ways, but we cannot allow that to commoditize us. Even though there is automation happening, we have to be able to leverage that to our advantage and really look at the ways that we can be providing even more value. And Heath alluded to that in the data gathering that he was talking about. Our ability to gather data and understand what is happening in our clients and pre-clients can help position us to provide even more value. And then the last two here that I'll touch on very briefly, our clients and even ourselves, we are going through radical business model transformation, and very specifically because of the world events that we're dealing with right now. And what that means for business development efforts is that they will, if not all of our business development efforts, a vast majority of them, they will be virtual well into the first half of 2021. So we do touch on that, and we talk about and talk through strategies on how do you do all of this work in a virtual environment. And these are very additive skills. Once we are back to being together, which we will be, I am very optimistic of that, these virtual business development skills will be additive to what you and your teams are bringing to your clients. So there's the timing for this type of skill development is so spot on and so critical, because it will position you well for the future when we are able to be back together. And so with that, I have a polling question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how effective would you say is your current business development process in driving growth? And you can see the answers there on screen, ranging from not effective and not being used, all the way up to being very effective and very ingrained in firm culture. So I'll give you a few seconds to weigh in on your thoughts on how effective your business development process is at driving firm growth.
I mean, whether wrapping up, one thing I would share on the accelerated ROI piece, I think it's probably even more so now than ever. I've helped facilitate several peer networking calls with several people from around the profession, kind of across the U.S. We actually have a couple coming up here over the next couple of weeks. And I always will reach out for agenda items, and that has come up almost every answer or when people respond, they want to talk about kind of the expectations from clients right now. And similar to what we've talked about before with that whole empathy side, I think if you look back over the past several months, people, operating out of your comfort zone is a good thing to a certain extent, but I think people have been operating out of their comfort zones for maybe an extended period of time. And when that happens, we see people start operating more out of fear and emotion instead of logically thinking things through. And so we're seeing that uptick, and that empathy from an advisory standpoint is just such a critical skill set to be able to put yourself in your client's shoes and understand what they're going through. So that's I think it's something we'll probably continue to see for a while.
Yeah, I would agree. And along the lines of the empathy piece of it is also they really look to us for confidence and preparation and helping to navigate through all this disruption, even though we are feeling it ourselves, whether individually or as a firm. Our role is to help our clients still navigate through all of it. So we're somewhat dealing with the two-part challenge. We're navigating it ourselves, and we're also helping our clients navigate it. All right, I think with that, we could probably close out the poll, and we can move on to the next piece. Excellent, thank you for sharing those results. So that wraps us up, and I will turn it back over to you.
We'll end here with program goals and outcomes and logistics. And just like any program, we like to highlight our goals and outcomes on the front end, and kind of the expectation for firm participants. That with most upstream programs, it's not just presenter audience. So there will be some things that we'll ask of your participants, and we'll have some interactive type sessions. And we want to, some of the pre-work, we're going to have them focus on an actual client and pre-client opportunity that they're working on. So we'll try to put some of that right to action after each session, and really taking that process. We've talked about being more impactful for time, and we see many firms struggle with actionable type planning and goal setting. So we'll talk through best practices there and walk away with some very actionable items, things that your professionals can do to take right back to opportunities that they're working on and putting to work. And so we do have one more polling question, then I'll hit on the logistical items, and we'll open it up for questions. But we are at our third polling question. So what are your most significant opportunities with business development efforts? Is that around building more capacity? So it's taking the thought of that everyone should be involved with business development at some level, but not everyone's going to be operating at that same level. So how do you free up more capacity for some of your top business developers? And then just taking those skill sets and putting those advisory mindset and applying that to business development as well. And then, going back to the A to B to C to D level clients, one of my favorite quotes from Sam is, around the fact that the only thing worse than chasing a D level client is actually landing a D level client. So we'll talk some about that as well. All right. So now what I would call maybe the less exciting part, we'll talk about the logistical piece of it. I did allude to pre-work, so anyone from your firm that you do register for the program, they will get survey and some pre-work ahead of time. It's not a huge time commitment. We're talking anywhere from 1 to 2 hours, I would say probably closer to the hour end, but that work they put on the front end will be very valuable, and it's information that they will use throughout the program. And then Amy and I will use that to help guide some of our discussions as well. And one of the things I want to highlight here, and questions that have come up in the past around ideal participants. The way the program is structured, you're looking at anywhere from manager, senior manager, to what I would call newer partner within the first 3 to 5 years of being partner. But with that said, with the current environment, Amy and I have teamed up with an association where we're doing kind of a pilot program for them as well. And over half of their firm participants were actually at the partner level. So we've really geared content towards that level. And the other thing I would highlight is, we've had the question, do we want people that are already good at business development, that they have an interest, or would it be our team members that maybe are lacking in this area? And although you could have people that are lacking in this area, I look at any kind of big opportunity for a firm, you're probably going to get more value out of the program focusing on those that want to be there and not those that feel like they have to be there. So maybe even going through a process of allowing having some conversations and seeing if people do have a true interest, because you'll just get so much more out of this if you have people that want to be part of the program and not begrudgingly having to go through it. So that's one thing I like to clarify on the front end. And then our virtual classroom sessions, we will have 5 2-hour sessions starting January 13th. Those sessions will go throughout November, but these will really focus on concepts, improvement process, and things that we'll be able to provide to them to put actually true to application. So we will have those 5 2-hour sessions throughout January through November of next year. And Amy kind of got into this, alluding to some of the content through the process, but we'll focus that January 13th session on. We talked through this timing. We know we'll be approaching peak season for many firms, but it's a great opportunity when you're interacting with clients. So we wanted to get that first session in before many firms get into heavy peak season. But it's around that thought, around that intelligence and that data piece that we have access to, of engaging with clients, looking for cross-serving opportunities, or using the data we have access to focus on pre-clients. That second area around building relationships. Relationships are such a key part of doing business development. And we'll get into ways about asking for referrals and introductions, being more strategic around that. We'll get into, if your firm's not currently doing any kind of client surveys, of leveraging that kind of information for relationships. And then the proposing piece. Amy talked about some of the key elements behind a proposal. We'll even get into the concepts about potential ways to work around proposals, and then strategies around presentations and some of those presentation best practices. And then around that thought of gaining commitment, not necessarily closing, but from the day one when you meet someone, you start to build that rapport and gaining that commitment, and they're going to start to learn what it would be like to work with you. And then that last session in November of taking what we've talked about, applying those insights, potentially looking at things you can do within your firm to really take and leverage what's been taught and then help teach others within your firm. Not only that, we talked about the goal setting process and really holding your participants accountable. So those are the 5 different areas. And one other part of this are the coaching sessions. So we have 3 virtual mastery classes. These will be less content heavy, but they'll be focused on additional topics that your teams, your participants would like to cover. And some of that could be, we could actually get into real life pursuit coaching of opportunities that they're working on and opportunities that they're seeing. So we will have those coaching sessions spread throughout the years as well. So here are the program dates. As I mentioned, we will kick off in January. The program will run through November. So we'll have 8 sessions throughout January through November. 5 of those will be more presenter audience interactive type training, but then we'll also have those 3 coaching sessions. So that's what the next year will look like. And then very similar to other upstream programs, we have our Unconditional Guarantee. We believe in the content, we believe in the program. If for some reason, if your firm's not satisfied, we're willing to work with you on refund, either a partial, if you feel like you only got some value out of those sessions. So we once again, we're big believers in our content. So we do have that unconditional guarantee tied to any program that we do. And then we do have our pricing options of Upstream Academy Network members of a discounted price. So we are doing it per person, or if a firm would like to send up to 5 participants, which I think you'll get a lot of value out of having multiple people from within your firm. We've seen some of the value come from cross-serving opportunities. So if you have people from different service backgrounds or maybe different emphasis, of having them work together throughout the program. So those are the pricing options. And then our next steps, I mentioned our first session is on January 13th. Our registration deadline is on January 6th. So we have information here on the slide about where to register, or you can always reach out to Amy, to Georgia, to Kelsey, to myself, or just at info@upstreamacademy.com. So there is our contact information if you do have any additional questions. We'll pause for just a second here and see if there's any questions.
And while we're waiting,
go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, while we were waiting for any email or chat to come in, just back to your point about firms having a group of 5 participate. The other program that you alluded to that we are working on is doing something similar with that. and really being able to bring people together, like you mentioned, from offices or different disciplines, even across the firm. Seeing that collaboration actually very early on with having a group coming from the firm has been really beneficial.
Yeah, 100%, Amy. And one thing I would throw onto that, just to kind of give everyone a little background too, some firms may choose to have, whether it's various levels, but you may have like what I'll call an executive sponsor. So for some firms, they've had their firm managing partner or maybe someone else within the firm of helping oversee the other participants. So we've seen some firms go that direction, or just having 5 people participate, and there's been value there as well. So firms have approached it a little different. Have some firms that they do have a director of business development or a director of marketing, they've also incorporated them into the program to work with their client-facing professionals. So depending on your firm makeup, your firm structure, and your goals of the program, those are a couple of various things that have been discussed. So I just at least wanted to provide that as food for thought as you're thinking through your course participants. Well, with that, Amy, unless you have any other thoughts or feedback, there are no additional questions coming in, and we will stay on the line just for another few seconds here to leave our contact information if you do have any questions. And please feel free to reach out. I know we have November and December into early January to still register, so we have plenty of time. But with that, if you do have questions, I'd be happy to set up a one-on-one conversation. So please, as always, feel free to reach out with anything that you might have. Have a great week. I appreciate your time today, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in the near future. So thank you.